All right, hello, good morning, and welcome once again to Jeff Teaches Programming. You can see again at the top line that's on the screen, that's the address for my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel itself is at JPS, Jeff Teaches Programming, and the playlist we're working on currently is Jeff Teaches Programming-Python. They have changed up YouTube a little bit since I first got into it. And now if you do go into YouTube and you do search for JPS, Jeff Teaches Programming, it finds it. According to that, I've got 5 subscribers. All right, just starting, which is totally fine. All right, so what I'd like to do today is to actually, write a little code, but first, there are a couple documents out on code.visualstudio.com/docs. And I'd like to first go over this Python tutorial. Now, some of the stuff that's in here, for at least some of you, may seem way over your heads. And you're like, geez, I'm never going to get this stuff. I'm going to be very light with it, for lack of better words. So that's where I'm going to go. And I've got it up here someplace. So I want to make sure I got the right one. So this is getting started with Python in VS Code, and the other one is editing Python in VS Code. All right, I think we want the getting started one. So as they say here, and I don't want to sit and read to you, but we're going to use Python 3, and we're going to use it in conjunction with Visual Studio Code. Now they're going to have a very simple application that they write in here. All right, I have not gone through this before. I've decided that since I'm learning, again, you're going to learn along with me. So if I screw something up, you get to watch. Now, they do mention here, if you're new to programming, check out the Visual Studio Code for Education Introduction to Python course. I have not looked at it. It looks like it'd be pretty doggone good. All right, so you can see it right there. And it is under vscodeedu.com courses. Intro to Python. So if you're interested in that, there it is. Let me cut down the size a little bit. There you go. So that's the one that they're referencing in there. That is this one that you see in the background. All right. Okay, so let's get going here. It says here, to gain a deeper understanding of the Python language, you can explore any of the programming tutorials on python.org. Fine. Now, I'm not going to talk a bit about data science, not right now, but much later we will. So the prereqs for this, and I don't have any of this stuff loaded, it requires Python 3, Visual Studio Code, and the Visual Studio Code Python extension. So let's start with, as it says, installing a Python interpreter. Now, I'm going to give you my take on this, and some people who have heard me give this definition, explanation, have agreed with it, and some have not. All right? So imagine that I am walking down the street, okay, and I see somebody who thinks that they know me, and they start talking to me. The problem is they're talking to me in a different language. So we're going to suppose right now that I'm talking English and they're talking Spanish. And even though I do know some Spanish, let's pretend I know no Spanish whatsoever. So you've got me down the road walking, somebody walking up the road, and I'm speaking English, they're speaking Spanish. Okay? So they're trying to communicate with me and I can't understand what they're saying. So along comes a third person, and that person is an interpreter. All right. So they say, like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll help you here, and we'll see what's going on. Now, with a true interpreter, all right, what happens is the system. So imagine this person is talking, and as they're talking, the interpreter is taking and interpreting or converting their Spanish to English so I can understand it. But let's suppose that this person knows Spanish pretty well, but not super well. And every time they get to a word they don't understand, they have to say, stop, stop, and they have to go and look in their Spanish to English dictionary. What does that have to do with anything? Well, when you're working in Python, since it's an interpreted programming language, basically the program will stop while it's running anytime it finds an error. And you have to fix that error and then start it up again. And if it finds another error, it'll stop there. That's as opposed to a compiled language. With a compiled language, basically you've got to kind of look at it like this. So if we, looking at our example before, let's say that every time the person speaking Spanish says a word that the interpreter doesn't understand, they write it down on a piece of paper. And then when they get done, they look up all those words. But they go through everything, regardless of how many errors or whatever there may be. That's a compiled language. Well, Python is interpreted. All right. So the first thing we want to do, as it says, we want to install Python from python.org. It says here, use the download Python button that appears first on the page to download the latest version. So here it is. There's download. All right. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to go and it's going to basically stick it someplace down in here. There it is in my downloads folder. And it says, do you want to do everything? Yeah, I want to install it now. And I'm not going to customize it. The admin privileges, I don't think I'll need to do that. I also don't think I'll need to add the executable to my path. Now I could check all these things and I could do a custom install, but I'm just going to do it like this. I don't believe this took very long. Again, it's 3.12.4. Now, if we do look up on the top here, you'll notice it says 3.13, but that's in pre-release. That's not going to come out until October. All right. So I can go into an online tutorial, go to the documentation. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to click close. So now when I come in here and go to my control panel, what you should see under programs and features is I should have Python in here. 3.12. Whatever it was. So there's Python 3.12.4, and it's put in today, right now. All right, so we've got that done. All righty, let's jump back into here. If you don't have admin access, an additional option is to use the Microsoft Store. Don't worry about that. All right, for additional information, for Python for Windows, there is an article that you can go to. Now, I'm using a Windows machine. It's an older machine. It's Windows 10. All right. I'm not going to do anything with Mac or with Linux. Okay. In addition, these other options, these are things, especially the data science, that we would look at a later time. All right. Now, as it says here, if you want to make sure that it's installed correctly, we can bring up a command prompt like this. And since we are using Windows, we can type in pi -3 -version. And it comes back Python 3.12.4. So that's good. So as it says there, and I can close this, if the installation was successful, the output window should show the version that was just installed. All right, so we've done that. Next, they start talking about Visual Studio Code. Well, I haven't added that yet. And I do want to mention, just in case people don't know this, there are 2 free products from Microsoft. One, the one we're going to use, is Visual Studio Code, also known as VS Code. There is also Visual Studio. VS Code, for lack of better words, I don't know if I've ever heard it put like this, but basically VS Code is a subset of Visual Studio. Visual Studio is a complete IDE. It is an integrated development environment. And there's 3 flavors of that you can get. There's a free community edition, but we're not going to use that. So I'm going to go into vscode.com. Right there. I think this is right. If it's not, you'll know. Okay, it says it's for sale. So let's just look at Visual Studio Code download Windows 10, which is again what I'm using. All right. So they've got this PopSilla, and I've looked at that before, but I'm going to go over to here. It's a code.visualstudio.com download. All right, and I'm going to use Windows, and it says it's for Windows 10 and 11. All right, and it's going through the process right now. I could have also clicked, I believe, right here as well, and it would have done it. All right, so there it is, right here. I'll accept the agreement, go to Next. I'll put it in the default place and click Next. Do I want a shortcut? Sure. Select any additional tasks. I'll have a desktop shortcut. I want to add the Open with Code to the context menu. You'll see that in a bit. And I'll have them all. How's that? I'll just have them all, sir. Chosen. It's telling me what it's going to add, and I'm going to tell it to install. All right. Again, this shouldn't take very long. I don't believe it's a very big package. All right. Now, when I showed you, and I probably was stupidly closed it, but let's see, let this finish. All right. So it's finished. And it'll bring it up right away. I don't care about that. We'll talk about that in a bit. But now when I go back into my control panel, what you'll notice, which was not in here before, is there's Visual Studio Code. Again, it's got today's date on it. It's 376 meg, which, with today's software is not really very big. All right. Now, what I want to do is, first close a few of these things I really don't need anymore. So let's close a bunch of them. And so we're right here. So we've done this so far. Okay. So it says here, start VS Code in a workspace folder. I'm going to do that in a second, but I want to show you something first with VS Code. So let's type in here Visual Studio Code, and let's start it up. Now, one thing that Visual Studio Code has is a plethora or a lot of available extensions. And I believe it's over here, right, the 4th one down. If you go to extensions, you can go and look, and there literally are so many in here. But I'm going to come in here and type in Python. All right. So there's Python language support. Python, this is extensions for Python. That's the one I'm going to install in just a minute. Python indent, Python debugger, Python extension pack. So you can see when you start looking through here, there's a lot of stuff. If you told me there were at least 100, I'd believe you. All right. So it says by starting VS Code in a folder, that folder becomes your workspace. Using a command prompt, create an empty folder. I'm just going to follow their steps here. So I'm going to come in here and use a command prompt. So CMD. All right. And I'm going to go to my desktop. And on my desktop, I'm going to create an empty folder called Hello. Whoops. Make dir. Hello. Okay. So I should have an empty folder now on there called Hello. Now I can do this CD. In fact, let's just do it. Let's be consistent here. So command prompt. Again, I'm going to follow their steps that are right here. I just did this. I just did the make dir hello. So I'm going to do a CD to desktop. I'll do a CD to hello. Okay, so I'm on my desktop hello folder, and I'm going to type in code dot. Now I'm going to close the Visual Studio Code that I had open before, and I've got code dot, and I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, again, it opens up Visual Studio Code, and it says hello is my current folder. Okay, this I should, well, let's leave it up. Since there's other ways you can do it as well. All right. For instance, in my folder here that's called code, a lot of junk in here. In that folder or called hello rather, I could have just right mouse clicked on it and chose open with code. All right. So there's a lot of different ways that we could do this. All right. A best practice among Python developers is to use a project-specific virtual environment. Once you activate that environment, any packages you install are isolated for other environments. So what we're going to do by creating this virtual environment is we're going to set up stuff that's only going to work when we're in that environment. So once you activate the environment, any packages, again, are isolated from other environments. Okay, you can create non-global environments in VS Code by using venv or Anaconda with Python create environment. So it says open the command palette. Again, I want to keep both these up here if I can. So it says open the command palette with a Control plus Shift plus P. All right, and start typing Python move this down just a bit, move that up, there we go. All right, so again, Control Shift P, and we want to type in Python colon create environment. All right, and then select the command. Creates a new virtual environment in the current workspace. Well, I think this is the one. You know, things change over time. So create a new terminal starting in a custom working directory. Otherwise, it's show environment contributions. I don't think that's it. So Python create environment. Okay. It says the command should then show you a list of interpreters. Well, maybe I did choose the wrong one, because what it did was it came down here and it basically created, let's see, let's try this again. So all right, maybe I did it wrong, so that's okay. Control Shift P, Python. See, that looks totally wrong. That's environment changes. Alrighty. The command presents a list of environment types, venv or Anaconda. It didn't. It only showed this. Brought up a terminal. I'm looking for view and I'm not finding it. and I don't want to waste my time, nor do I want to waste yours. The command then lists a list of interpreters. This isn't doing that. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to skip this, and I'll go back and look at it later. All right? So let's do this. I want to go back in here, and I know it said before, much earlier up here, that we wanted the Python extension. All right? So I'm just going to install that from right here. It's telling me to open VS Code, even though it is open. That's okay. And now it's saying install. So I'm going to install it. Actually making this harder than it is, but that's okay. Okay, so it is there now. And I can tell because I can uninstall it if I want to. All right, so I've got that. So the time has actually come, jumping down here, for us to create our first Python code source file. So we want to, from the File Explorer toolbar, we want to select the New File option in our Hello folder, and Python files always end with a .py extension. All right, so let's go in here and do this. I'm going to bounce back and forth between these. So I'm in here. I want a new file, and I want it to be hello.py. Hit enter, and there it is. There's my file. So this is the first time we're into Python language. So everything's cool. By using the py extension, you can tell Visual Studio Code to interpret the file as a Python program. Now that you have the code, enter the following into it. And I'm going to do this, be a little cheating here. And there's a reason I'm doing this. I want to mention it to you. What you're going to find when you look in here is quite often what users end up doing is putting a lot of line feeds or blank spaces in between things. Do I have to do that? Of course not. Now, one thing to notice right away, unlike many other languages, this is, in a way, more similar to JavaScript in that, notice we've got message equal. We didn't say string message equal or anything else. Also notice no semicolons on the end. This will work like this. It'll also work if we just do it like this. Either one will work. All right, let me jump back into here. Now, they do mention here when you start typing print, the IntelliSense should kick in. So let's go back and look at that. So see that? There's print. This is IntelliSense. If I want one of these, I can just click on it like that. All right, then message. I believe it doesn't mind at all if we put a blank space in there. So you can be somewhat free formatting with the way that you set this stuff up. All right. Finally, save the file. All right, we're about halfway done with this, so let's see. So file, save. All right, so we've now got a saved file. Now we want to run it. It says click the Run Python file in Terminal in the Terminal Play button in the right-hand side of your editor. So right there. Right there. Now, if this works, it should come up on the screen and say roll a dice. There it is. Roll a dice. Now, not really anything. In fact, a lot of times what you'll get for the first program is, instead of this, let's just comment this out. I can show you commenting right now, but this is one way to comment. But quite often you do a hello world. So I can just print here, hello world. All right, and if I save this again, and I run it again, the message is going to be replaced. So rather than saying here, roll the dice, it now says hello world. That's kind of the quintessential first program that you write most of the time. Let's get rid of that because I'm trying to follow their instructions here. Okay, notice that if I comment this out, I'm going to get an error right here. That's the interpreter, because I've commented out where I've declared message. So it says message is not defined. That's an example of how you can create an error in here. So, okay. The button opens a terminal. You just saw that. There are 3 other ways you can run this. You can right-click anywhere in the editor window and click Run Python File and Terminal. So in other words, we can come in here, right mouse click, it says Run an Interactive Window. I don't know if that's it or not, but it says in the editor window, which is where we are here. There we go. Run Python. Run Python in terminal. And we again get the same thing, but it's back to where we've got roll the dice. Okay, so that's another way that you can run this. Select one or more lines and press Shift Enter or right click and do Run Selection. Let's just select all of it. Right mouse click and choose Run Selection in Python Terminal. And again, you see roll a dice. All right. Finally, from the command palette, Control-Shift-P, you can do a select the Python, start REPL. And REPL is basically a kind of a built-in interpreter that'll run. I'm just going to leave that off. I think showing you a couple ways like this is plenty. All right. Configure and run the debugger. Now let's try debugging our Python program. Debugging support is provided by the Python debugger extension that is automatically installed when you put in Python. To ensure it's been installed correctly, open your extensions view, Control-Shift-X, and search for Installed Python Debugger. All right, so there it is. And again, we want to search for this. And there's the Python debugger. Okay, so we know that that's in there. Now, set a breakpoint on line 2 by placing the cursor on the current print line and pressing F9. Or you can click in the area way to the left that's called the gutter area. So I'm going to come over to here. I'm going to grab this. Notice as soon as I put that there, boom. Or I can hit F9, but I'm going to just click right there. Now what a breakpoint does is it stops on this line. It doesn't run this line, I believe. At least it's going to stop on this line. Next, to initialize the debugger, press F5. Now, I'm just going to tell you, all right, I may have problems with this because hitting the function keys when I am working like this in Camtasia, which is the package that I am using in here to record my videos, doesn't work very well. All right. But I'm going to try it anyway to see if it works. But if it locks up my machine, sorry, then I might have to redo this lecture. All right, I hit F5. That is not what we want. So I'm going to try this. How to initialize the Python debugger in Visual Studio Code. It says by setting a breakpoint, by clicking in the gutter to start it, press F5. Well, I want to see if there's another way. Once your program reaches the breakpoint, it will stop. Well, I don't know if there's another way to do this, so I may be stuck here, but we'll see. Remove and edit the breakpoint. I'm trying to see if there's anything for the debugger here. Install, apply extension, disable. Well, again, this is going to be part of the problem that we're going to run into, just so you know. All right, this is going to be part of the problem that we're going to run into because I'm doing this in real time. There's the debug console. Don't want that. Well, let's try this. I'm going to try GPT. So, how to initialize the Python debugger in Visual Studio Code without using the F5 key, and see if they've got anything. Okay, there we go. And it's saying there's at least 3 ways we can do this. We can use the debug sidebar. So open the debug view by clicking the debug action in the activity bar on the side of VS Code, or by pressing Ctrl-Shift-D. In there, click the green play button at the top. Or we can open the command palette with Ctrl-Shift-P and type in debug, start debugging. Or if we don't have a launch configuration file, we can create one. Or we can use a keyboard shortcut. Now I'm going to try using this debugging sidebar. I'm going to try this one. Seems like it'd be the easiest. So I'm going to do a Ctrl-Shift-D and then click the green play button. So Ctrl-Shift-D. So far not so good. Ctrl-Shift-D. Well, that did nothing. Let's try the next one. Open the command palette, Ctrl-Shift-P, and type in debug, start debugging. Let's try that one. So, Ctrl-Shift-P, and we're going to type that in here, or I'd copy it in here. Debug, start debugging. All right. I'm hoping that that worked. So let's see. Because this is the steps when you press the F5. Again, you should have no problem with that. I have nothing but problems with that. Then it says that the debug toolbar should appear at the top with the following commands from left to right. I don't think I have those, but these are the ones that you're going to see. All right, so continue, step over, step into, step out, restart, and stop. All right, it says the status bar also changes color, orange in many themes, to indicate that you're in debug mode. To continue running the program, select the command on the debug toolbar, and then you can make it end. All right, so let's see. I do not have that up here. So evidently whatever I've tried to do so far has not worked. I'll try to look into that before the next lecture. All right. You can also work with variables in the debug console. If you don't see it, select debug console in the lower right area of VS Code or select it from the triple dot menu. Well, this is the debug console down here. So I'm going to type in MSG as they say to do. Please start a debug session. Well, it's not letting me start one. Boy. Oh, there, maybe I did that. So it's the Python debugger. Python file debug the currently active Python file. Run and debug. Well, let's see. There it is. Okay, so it was a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I got it to work. How did I get it to work? Okay, I did a Control-Shift-P, put in debug, start debugging. All right, it tells me it's already running, so I don't, that's why I'm getting that. But when you do it, you should get this up there then. All right, so if I do want to continue, now I can go here. You'll notice it stopped because I've got the breakpoint. All right, if I click it again, roll the dice. There it is. All right. And it stopped and waiting for me to do something else. But notice I've got print message here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to come down here and type in print. And I'll put in our hello world that we had before. All right. I'm going to put a breakpoint here, but I'm going to remove this one. And I can just click on it again, or I can right mouse click on it after it's been added, and I can choose remove, or I can just disable it. So let's just disable it. Now I'm going to run this again. All right, and now it should print out my roll of dice, but it should stop before it gets to hello world. All right. So there's a roll of dice right here, but it doesn't show hello world. However, if I tell it to continue, there's hello world. Now you would put this into debug mode, or one reason for doing this is as you're writing code, all right, and you want to run it so you can find out all of your errors. Okay, a little longer than I was hoping it would be, but hopefully that made some sense to you. You can also come down to here. Okay, notice you got debug, start debugging down here. It says command not found, but I want to see if I can, they mentioned in here that, let's see, you can also work with variables in the debug console. If you don't see it, select debug console in the lower right area of VS Code or select it from the menu. All right. So the lower right area. I would think that's the debug console right there, but it didn't work. There, Python debug console. There we go. Well, let's see if it works. Well, that's MSG says send a message to the user. It's not showing roll of dice. Get the prompt in the console. That's not the prompt that I'm getting. I'm not getting a greater than. But it says here, debug, start debugging, so maybe I've got the wrong thing coming up here. Debug console. Well, that's what's showing. And it's not, it's not coming up, as you can see right there. So that's not working. Another thing we'll have to take a look at. All right, it says let's build upon the previous example by using packages. Now this is pretty big, all right? And what I mean is we're going to add this. This is going to import or bring in a built-in package that exists in Python called NumPy. And we're going to import it as NP, and then we're going to tell it to create a random number for us. And that random number will be between 1 and 9. We're going to change this a little bit. So I'm going to grab all of this, copy it to the clipboard, and just replace whatever we have in there with this. So I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to grab every bit of this and replace it with this. All right? Now, what's going to happen here, let's face it, when we do a random die, it's going to give a number between 1 and 6. So we'll put in here the die landed on a, like that. All right. Now we've got in here import NumPy, and I'm getting an error. It says it could not be resolved. Select a different interpreter. Learn more about, well, let's see. Let's see if we run this, if we do get an error. How's that? Saying invalid syntax. Hello.py. NumPy. Import NumPy could not be resolved by Pylance. This is what being a programmer is all about. Python error. Bring it up again. See if it comes up with that. All right. This is Stack Overflow, which I'm going to get to in just a minute, which is kind of like, I always call it, it's sort of, Facebook for nerds. All right. So it says I have wrote. That's fine. I wrote the following code. When I run it, I get this. Do you have multiple Python environments? And first try writing pip install NumPy. So let's come in here and see if we can do that. Of course, it doesn't recognize that. See if we can do that from in here. I don't think it'll work from here. Nope. try this in VS Code. Do a Control-Shift-P, type Python, select interpreter, select 3.10.4, or one that matches your version, because it didn't pick the right interpreter. So we want to do a Control-Shift-P and put in this. So let's try that. Well, I selected it. I selected 3.12.4. There's where we could have created our virtual environment, evidently. Still doesn't like it. That's what I just did. It says if you're using VS Code, press F1. Again, I cannot do that because it doesn't work with my Camtasia package. Then select or write Developer Reload Window. Well, I have no idea if that one will work or not, but let's try that. It says the system cannot find the path specified. So the path looking for this is not my path. So I disabled VS Code global linting. So let's try Python enable disable linting. Control-Shift-P Python : enable disable linting. It's not showing it here, so let's just try lint. Not finding it there either. Control-Shift-P Python. See, it's not showing it there as it is down here. But I'm going to try this again anyway. That did nothing. All right, so rather than waste your time, this solved the problem for me. I don't think that this is going to work either. Probably another not found. Yep. All right, so somebody else said, close the terminal and then reinstall the numpy library. This is only because of the interpreter. Try this. Control-Shift-P, type in. I already did that. Select interpreter. Select, but I want the one that I have, so we've already done that. Control-Shift-P. Select interpreter. We already did this. Let's look and see if that's the right path. Okay, so let's see if this is the right path. So C:// C:/, probably in program files. All right, I'm going to pause and take a look for it. Let's do this. Let's take a screenshot. And come in here and let's put this in. Well, it looks like that isn't my path. So I'm going to let the system look for it for me. You can see that it matched this until we got here, and then it wasn't finding this. So I think what I'll do is I'm just going to pause right now because I don't know how long this is going to take, and I'm already up to 54 minutes on here, so this might take a couple seconds, and it might take quite a few seconds. I'll give it about 5 more minutes there. What we're attempting to do, though, is to use a built-in Python, some built-in Python code, and adding it to our program where it will go in and create a number, a random number between 1 and 6, which is what you'd get, of course, when you put in a die. All right, and then it's supposed to print that. The problem is it cannot find, as you saw, it cannot find in here where we're trying to put in NP. So if I go to Python right here and I type in P, see, it doesn't find it at all. And I'm not a hardware guy, so. Are you kidding me? I somehow removed. Okay, I stopped checking it. It has to be in one of these, I would think. I don't see any Python in there. Or there. Or there. All right, I'll have to check for that all over again. So I want python.exe. So I am going to stop, and I'll come back to this in a little while. I apologize. All right, so I did this tape this morning, and then I had to stop, so I'm picking it up right now. And when I wanted to come in there and do this, to enter the interpreter path, I'm thinking this is the right path. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that's it. Bad news is it still is giving me, oh, it got rid of my error. It says an invalid and Python interpreter is selected. Please try changing it to enable features. All right, so select Python interpreter. So it didn't like that. What I did was in here, I went in and I did a search on my C drive of python.exe. And I thought that it would be the one that would say Python 312 right here. Let's see if I do this. I don't want to do that. Let's see. See, that's Python. All right, I'm going to try this one. And I want to open the file location. Thought that was the same thing I just put in there, but let's see. So let's copy that. Let's enter an interpreter path. See if that comes up or if I still get an error. All right. I don't see an error right now, and I have no mistake right there. So if I do come in here and run this, I should get the die landed on either a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, if this works. Let's see. I don't want this open anymore, so let's try it here. Okay, it's telling me Okay, it doesn't like the path that I gave it to run the program that I gave it. Fantastic. And it is giving me that error too, that numpy. Alright, so I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to see if I can find that. Doggone it. Now I lost it. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my C drive. And I'm going to check for python.exe as I did before. Alright, this is going to take quite a while, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this lecture up. Alright, so. Alright, so this, let's see, this is what I had been working on. So I tried to bring in that package. And it says you should see the message. This is to install it. Stop the debugger. Use the command palette to run terminal. Create new terminal. This command opens a prompt for you for your selected and let's try that. So stop the debugger. It's kind of what I did, I believe. I killed the debugger. No, I did not. So stop the debugger. Well, that should kill it right there. That should kill the debugger, I believe. Alright, so that's the first thing to do. Then do Control-Shift backtick to create a new terminal. So, Control-Shift backtick. Alright, I have no idea if that did anything. I'm still getting that error, so that isn't good. To install the required packages, enter the following commands as appropriate for your operating system. Alright, so this is Windows here. I'm going to try to put this right from the command line. See if it gives me an error or not. Give that a second. I don't know if I'm getting a prompt back from there or not. There we go. Alright, so let's jump back into our program. Okay, the error is gone. Now if I run this, okie dokie, I'm still getting, because this is the path that I gave it. So, let's do a file, save, and let's close this. Well, that wasn't real good. I'm hoping I didn't lose everybody here. Doesn't look like it could. And I'm going to come back and open this up again in Visual Studio Code. So open with code. And I have to see if I'm going to get the same error or not. There it is. All right. Can only concatenate string, not int. Ah, okay. Yeah, this has got to be a string here. Let's just get rid of this. We'll just do what they had in the book, or in the handout here. Okay, so let me run that again. All right, so notice I got a 3. If I run it again, I get a 2. If I run it again, I get a 1, etc. So it's working. All right, fantastic. Alright, congrats on completing the tutorial. During the course, we learned how to create a Python project, create a virtual environment, run and debug your Python code, etc. Now, I'm not going to go through this now, but we'll go through this one later and this one later. Alright, What I'm hoping to do, and I got to go back and reread this tomorrow, and that is I'm going to go back and look at this editing Python in Visual Studio Code. All right. Some of the stuff that's in here, some of you will already know, and you might find what I'm doing to be almost a waste of your time. And if you do, I apologize for that. But I'm trying to be as comprehensive on this as I can. So with the one we did today, what you learned to do was we went in and we added the Python extension to Visual Studio Code after we put in Visual Studio Code. We put in Python 3, we put in Visual Studio Code and the Visual Studio Code Python extension. All right. Next, we went in and double checked and made sure our version worked with pi -3 - version, and it came up 3.12 point something. We went in and created a new folder in our desktop called Hello. All right. And then inside of that folder, we came in, and this is what I wanted to do and had some problems with it, with creating a virtual environment. If that becomes an issue later on, I'll go back and review it with you. Okay? I'm not going to worry about it right now. We went in and created, under Hello, we created hello.py. Remember that all Python files end with a .py extension. We put this in. I put a blank space in here, though you don't have to. And we ran it, and we got roll a dice. Or roll a dice. All right. Then we noticed we came in with 3 different ways of running it. I'm going to continue to run it this way as long as it works. We configured and ran the debugger. We brought these up with the debugger. All right. Finally, we went in and did install the NumPy package. Had to go in and add this line of code right here in Windows. I wish I would have read that before, and I didn't. So that was it for this. Tomorrow, again, I'm going to go over the editing Python in Visual Studio Code. Until then, have a nice evening.